Good evening. I'm Stephen Dean, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you here and to preside over this evening's festivities. I am Vice Dean and also a professor here at Brooklyn Law School, and my role here tonight is to introduce you to some of the folks who are going to speak to you tonight. These are members of our extraordinary community here at Brooklyn, the center of the world, and also at the heart of the legal profession. I know you must be excited. We are excited for you. The Brooklyn Law School community begins with our students, you, but it does not end there. Our students connect with alumni and friends of the law school, both here in Brooklyn and around the world. You will be welcomed by Dean Stacy Caplow, a member of our faculty and a critical part of the school's leadership. Next, we are delighted to have Judge Katzman, part of the Chief Judge for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. He was going to be here as a treasured member of our extended BLS family. And last but not least, Dean Fullerton will formally introduce you to the vibrant intellectual community you have now joined. So I'm going to start with Dean Caplow. And Dean Caplow is Brooklyn Law School's Associate Dean, and always ready, Associate Dean of Associate Dean of Professional Legal Education, and I always get it wrong, so apologize for that in advance, and also a professor of law. And don't let my white beard fool you. Dean Caplow has me beat by a mile in terms of experience. And to prove it to you, I'm not going to talk about all the hundreds of students she's helped learn to navigate a courtroom, or the countless clients her Safe Harbor Clinic has helped. I'm going to give you a brief tour of her extraordinary bibliography. In the 1980s, she published Autopsy of a Murder, using simulation to teach first-year criminal law. In the 1990s, she wrote A Year in Practice, the Journal of a Reflective Clinician. Even after decades and dozens of publications, she wasn't finished. In the aughts, she authored The Gaelic Gets, a case of self-defense in Ireland. And in this decade, whatever that's called, finding that for better or worse, the world had finally caught up with her, slowly coming to understand the importance of immigration law, she continued her writing, publishing After the Flood, the legacy of the surge of federal immigration appeals. As is true of so many of the people flanking me up here, Dean Caplow's scholarship represents only one aspect of an impressive career. Dean Caplow.
Hi, everyone, and hello out there to my criminal law class. I'll be seeing you next week. So I just want to, I've been given the task and the welcome task of welcoming you to Brooklyn Law School on behalf of the faculty behind me in the jury box, as well as all of the administrators and staff members who are here tonight. You can, instead of saying you've got everybody from A to Z, we have everybody from A to A, admissions to alumni. So we've covered all bases, and we're all welcoming you to the law school. So I mentioned to my son that I was going to Convocation. He said, "What does that mean?" So I thought, he's a grown-up, and he's a lawyer, and he still doesn't know what it means. So I thought, maybe there's some people in here who doesn't know what it means either. Convocation comes from the Latin, which used to be a pretty important part of the law, and I think we find it less and less prevalent. But it means to call or come together, and it's often used for academic convenings like this one. But this courtroom is pretty special, and I noticed in the hallway outside there's some interesting posters, because this courtroom is the courtroom where new citizens are sworn in after they're naturalized. Maybe some of you in this room were sworn in this very courtroom. And other life-altering events like swearing in judges, such as the judges who preside here in the Eastern District. Like them, all lawyers do, when they're admitted to the bar and when they are licensed to practice law, also have to take an oath, just like new citizens, just like new judges. And our oath requires us to uphold the law to the best of our abilities. So it's our job as your teachers to give you the tools to reach that level so that you can be lawyers to the best of your abilities. Well, what does that mean? Well, this is a journey you're starting on tonight. It's going to recreate you in many ways. Sometimes you're going to fight against that. Sometimes you're going to be willing to be changed. But I can honestly say that at the end of 3 or 4 years, or maybe something in between, you will all be different. At the end of the time, when you marched on the stage for commencement, you're going to basically say, I can't believe it went that quickly. I can't believe I've finished law school so fast. But what you will be at that time is different. So law school introduces you to a new way of seeing, organizing, analyzing, understanding the world, of having a purpose and finding intellectual and personal satisfaction. So I'm going to make a couple of predictions. Maybe they won't all come true, but I bet most of them will. You will change your behavior, your conversation, your relationships. You will gain wisdom and the power that that knowledge provides. You will have skills that you don't have today. You will work harder than you ever have before, but every day, like at the gym, after you're finished, you'll feel good about having stretched those muscles. You will become a helper, a problem solver, and a person who can change the lives of others. As law students and lawyers, there's one other prediction. You will become the butt of a lot of lawyer jokes and the recipient of a lot of useless lawyer paraphernalia. So, because my parents gave it to me, hanging in my dining room is a plate that says, first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. Now, I'm sure some of you have run across that Shakespearean quote before, but apparently it shouldn't be taken literally, hopefully, and it's almost always taken out of context. According to Elizabethan scholars, to most ordinary people, lawyers were basically annoying and a pain. They were expensive, they were pedantic, they had an archaic language, and they indulged in arcane procedures, and basically nobody knew what they were talking about, and they were alienating. That's not what Shakespeare was after in this quote. In the play, which is, I'm sure many of you have not read it, as have I not read it, Henry VI, Part 2, Act 4, Scene 2, the lawyers referred to in this quote actually were not corrupt or unethical or deserved to die, but they were perceived as a threat to the character in the play who wanted to seize absolute power and feared the interference of lawyers who would challenge his autocracy. To assure his success, he had to get lawyers out of his way. Lawyers may not have been popular to the public, but Shakespeare also knew that lawyers could obstruct unjust, undeserved despotism. 500 years later, you've been able to observe how across the country lawyers and judges have held the government accountable and have blocked injustice, used the law and courts to temporarily or even permanently change the course of events. In this very courthouse, U.S. District Judge Ann Donnelly issued a preliminary injunction against the first travel ban in January 2017. After hearing arguments from ACLU's Lee Gallant, who was honored by our Public Service Center last year for his life's work on behalf of immigrants. In February of this year, Judge Donnelly's colleague, Judge Nicholas Garofas, enjoined the discontinuation of the DACA program in this courthouse. And across the river, Judge Katzman, one of my great heroes, also saw an injustice that immigrants facing deportation had no right to counsel. So he began a movement to change that, which has succeeded in New York and has inspired other jurisdictions to follow. While we're on the subject of the death of lawyers, as a habitual obituary reader, I noticed that in 2018, our legal community lost some truly remarkable members. It's my hope that you will fill their shoes in some way equally as accomplished. For example, Robert Trarig, who is founder of the law firm Greenberg Trarig, died at 93. In 1967, he was one of 3 Jewish men who felt they didn't fit into Miami's corporate law practices, so he built a firm that has more than 2,000 lawyers today and is acclaimed for its diversity. It ranked #1 in the AmLaw 100 firms based on the number of Hispanic American attorneys and African American partners. Judge Cesar Quinones, a BLS alum, also died at 93. The judge first sat on family court, then was appointed in reappointment to the Court of New York State, the Supreme Court of New York State until his retirement. He was a founding member of the Puerto Rican Bar Association and the Latino Judges Association. If any of your family members attended or friends attended BLS in the last 50 years, they probably were among the thousands of students taught evidence and New York practice by the late Professor Richard Farrell, class of '64, who died last year at age 80. But most memorable to me is a lawyer I'd never heard of before named Dovey Johnson Roundtree, who died at 104. After a groundbreaking career as an African-American defense attorney in Washington, D.C. She was described as a one-woman legal aid society. Born in the Jim Crow South, she graduated from Howard University Law School when she was 36 after serving in the Army during World War II. She was the first African American admitted to the Women's Bar Association of the District of Columbia. So these are just a few of the shoes you'll be filling when you embark on your long careers as lawyers, possibly into your 90s or 100s like these people did. Look to them and to others you meet for inspiration as you set your course. I have the distinction, which some may consider dubious, of actually being the longest serving full-time faculty member at this law school. I've probably taught this. That's only applause for survival, not for anything else. Thanks. So I know there are many of you in here who have alumni relatives or friends, and some of them probably persuaded you to go to law school, and some of them probably persuaded you to go to Brooklyn Law School. I can say without authority that you made a wise choice to attend here. We're a student-centric community filled with faculty, administrators, alumni, and other students who want you to succeed here and beyond. Outside of law school, you're now part of vibrant Kings County, a community of entrepreneurs, real estate developers, green roof farmers, whose foreign-born population exceeds 37%. Take advantage of the endless opportunities to learn, to participate, to enjoy, and to make a difference in this wider community. You can look around the room, look right, look left, look around, look back, and what you'll see are your supporters, your mentors, your colleagues, your collaborators, and your network for life in this journey. So welcome and best wishes on the new chapter of your lives. Welcome to BLS.
Thank you, Stacy. And now Dean Fullerton is going to make a very special acknowledgement.
Thank you, Stephen. We have a special guest with us tonight. Judge I. Leo Glasser of the United States District Court of the Eastern District of New York is special for many reasons, but I want to emphasize two tonight. First, he was a member of the Brooklyn Law School class of 1948. Do the math. 70 years as an alumnus of Brooklyn Law School and as a devoted friend and supporter. Second, Judge Glasser, then Dean Glasser, was the dean of Brooklyn Law School when I joined the faculty. Thus, it's special to me that he's agreed to be here tonight as I welcome all of you to Brooklyn Law School. Now, when I invited Judge Glasser to be our special guest this evening, he imposed one condition: no superlatives, he said. I accepted that condition, and I'm going to respond to it by telling you the facts, or at least some of the facts, and letting you draw your own conclusions about superlatives. Judge Glasser is a native son of New York City. He grew up on the Lower East Side. He went to work at age 16. He put himself through college at night. He went to City College here in New York. World War II intervened. He spent the years from 1943 to 46 in Europe, particularly in France and Germany. He received the Bronze Star for bravery during his service. He also arrived at Dachau concentration camp several weeks after its liberation, an experience, he said, seared his soul. After he returned from the war, with the help of the GI Bill, he entered Brooklyn Law School. He was the editor-in-chief of the Brooklyn Law Review. He graduated with high honors in 1948. He then became a professor of law at Brooklyn Law School, and for 20 years he was a revered teacher, revered for his knowledge and for his passion about teaching. The judiciary stole him away from us the first time. He was appointed to the family court bench here in New York, where he served for a decade. After that, we lured him back to Brooklyn Law School, this time as a dean. After a few years at Brooklyn Law School, the judiciary reached into our midst again, and this time he became a judge here in this very courthouse, the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York. He has presided over numerous high-profile cases, and even more numerous low-profile cases. In each one, he has been committed to treating each defendant and each witness and each person in the courtroom fairly, affording them the due process that the United States Constitution requires. Please join me in acknowledging our former dean, our devoted alumnus, and our lifelong friend, Judge Leo Glasser.
Thank you, Dean Fullerton. And now for our next speaker, Judge Katzman. Judge Katzman is the Chief Judge for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. He became Chief Judge on September 1st, 2013. He has also been the Walsh Professor of Government, a Professor of Law, and a Professor of Public Policy at Georgetown University, and a Fellow of the Governmental Studies Program of the Brookings Institution. A lawyer and political scientist by training, Judge Katzman received an A.B., summa cum laude, from Columbia College, A.M. and Ph.D. in government from Harvard University, and a J.D. from Yale Law School. He'd received numerous awards, including the American Political Science Association's Charles E. Merriman Award, the Learned Hand Medal for Excellence in Federal Jurisprudence of the Federal Bar Council, and the Chesterfield Smith Award of the Pro Bono Institute, among many others. I give you Judge Katzman.
Thank you, Dean. Dean Caplow, about more later, and Dean Fullerton. It is a high honor to be with you and to participate in this convocation of Brooklyn Law School with all of you here, the entering class. Dean Fullerton, who's had such a distinguished career at Brooklyn Law School, I wish you well as the law school continues to soar. As Chief Judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, I can tell you, the entering class, that you are joining a law school community that is renowned and consequential, that your futures will be extraordinary ones because you are part of this amazing community. And I can speak quite directly to the excellence of the law school, of all its contributions to the administration of justice, of the superb faculty, and the quality of students. Brooklyn Law School has long had a history of accomplishment with many distinguished alumni, and all you have to do is look at the portraits in this room, and you will see distinguished alumni. Alumni like Leo Glasser, Edward Corman, David Traeger, as well as prosecutors, others leading members of the bar, business, public interest law, many of whom I've been privileged to know. I also want to note the presence of Judge Glasser. Since he didn't speak to me, I'm under no constraint about offering superlatives. But I can say that it is not simply that Judge Glasser is brilliant, but that he is wise, that there is a thoughtfulness and a consideration that he gives to everything that he does that inspires the rest of us by his example. There's no one more admired than Judge Glasser, who has contributed so much to this country in so many ways. And you'll come to experience your professors as a remarkable group, esteemed in their fields of scholarship and teaching. Scholars like Joel Gora, who have argued important Supreme Court cases. scholars whose writings have been path-marking as we've tried to develop and improve. These faculty, as Dean Caplow has said, will be your mentors, not just during your law school years, but beyond. One thing that I would encourage you to do is to develop your mentorship relationship with your faculty. They would welcome it, and it would really help you in the years ahead. That Supreme Court Justice Scalia and Sotomayor visited Brooklyn Law School, I believe at the invitation of Dean Allard, suggests that this is the place to be. Our judges routinely look to the faculty for their expertise. Recently, for example, Professor and former Dean Joan Wexler contributed immeasurably to the success of our courts, our circuit's bench bar judicial conference. Your clinical programs are superb across all dimensions. And I have a particular knowledge of your immigration clinical program, led by the amazing Stacy Caplow, who has been a mentor to me, and who, when we were putting together our study group on immigrant representation, when we were thinking about thoughtful people who could help steer us as we were thinking about access to justice, Stacy Caplow came immediately to mind. She is a major force for good with whom I've worked closely, and it's a privilege to be here with her. The Immigrant Justice Corps, which is a program that I helped start, has drawn strength from several graduates of Brooklyn Law School, your colleagues, many of whom have served as fellows. And a distinguished alumnus of Brooklyn Law, Robert Kaufman, has been a wonderful supporter of the Immigrant Justice Corps, which is the nation's first and only fellowship program devoted exclusively to recruiting and training young lawyers to devote their lives to support immigrants in need of representation. I've been impressed so much by the quality of the law students from Brooklyn Law School. I hope that many of you will go on to clerk in the federal and state systems. I know that seems far away right now, but it's closer than you think. Some of you may go on to clerk even as high on as the Supreme Court, as Sparkle Suknan did for Justice Sotomayor. Some of you may, apart from being clerks in judicial chambers, may be clerks in the staff attorney's office in my court. Just a few days ago, I had lunch with a graduate of Brooklyn Law School, Stuart Gold, a staff attorney. I could go on, but I think you have my meaning. This is a law school of extraordinary distinction. You are studying to become lawyers. You are at the beginning of a journey. For me, there is no greater calling than to be a lawyer. We could not have an equitable, peaceful society without some civil way to resolve disputes. The lawyer is essential as advocate, negotiator, as problem solver. Without the lawyer, how would rights be adjudicated? How would conflict be resolved peaceably? And if you like puzzles, this is actually a good profession to be in. Over the next years, you will learn, as Dean Caplow said, to think like a lawyer, to make sense of texts, to parse words, to represent clients, to communicate effectively in writing and orally, to argue. If you like solving problems, if you like solving puzzles, then the lawyer's life is for you. Take, for example, the role of a lawyer arguing a case, interpreting the laws of Congress. Laws dealing with, could be healthcare, national security, the environment, the economy. An important responsibility for judges is to interpret the meaning of the words passed by Congress. When the words are clear, then the task is a simple one. But what do we do when Congress's words are unclear, when they are vague, when muddiness reigns? As a lawyer, you will play the role of detective, unpacking the labyrinth of the legislative process to construe Congress's meaning. That is what I write about in judging statutes, and I'm so proud that this book, thanks to the generosity of the Brooklyn law community, has been given to you. And I hope very much in the coming year, of course, the coming academic year, that I can come back and perhaps we can exchange ideas about statutory interpretation. Just two quick things before I conclude. First, there is a project that I've been involved in, Justice for All Courts in the Community, an effort to bring our courts closer to the communities we serve, to promote public understanding of the judiciary. And many have been part of this effort, including the Eastern District of New York judges who have been absolutely superb. And I hope that you as law students will become involved as we try to reach out to communities to increase knowledge about the courts. Finally, let me leave you with this thought, and that is, it is your responsibility as lawyers to try to do good. There are millions of Americans and non-citizens who lack the resources to pay for a lawyer. Your responsibility as a lawyer is to help those in need. The state gives the legal profession an effective monopoly over that legal system, and that monopoly should entail an obligation of lawyers to ensure that all those in need have access to justice. Access to justice should not depend upon how wealthy somebody is. So I very much hope that in your lives as lawyers, and here you can start out right through your clinics, you can serve those in need. And everybody in this room should be thinking about somebody that you'd like to serve. It could be somebody in an eviction proceeding. It could be somebody in an immigration removal proceeding. It could be somebody across the board in need of legal support. You will really be making a difference. So save your time here. Years from now, when you look back upon your law school experience, you will remember it well, with the opportunities it presented, with the doors that it opened because you went to Brooklyn Law School. Entering students of Brooklyn Law, I wish you much success in your studies, and I very much hope that our paths will cross again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Katzman. So I now have a very special introduction. I would like to introduce you to you, the entering class of 2018. So take a look around. Students sitting with you. Did I turned that off. Okay, let's try this again. So you guys are the class 2018. Is that right? Raise your hand. Entering class 2018, not graduate 2018. So take a look around. The students sitting with you now will not only be your classmates, they will be your colleagues, potentially your support group, your legal network, your mentor, or even maybe a spouse. You are among an accomplished, diverse, and inspiring group of students who bring years of education, dedication, passion, and initiative to our community. In the coming years, you will learn that your fellow students are your greatest assets here at Brooklyn Law School. This bird's eye view will give you just a hint of the skills and strengths that will make you a force to be reckoned with. The 2018 entering JD class is composed of 360 students who are selected from more than 3,600 applicants from around the world. 308 of you have enrolled in the 3-year program. 26 are in our accelerated 2-year JD program. 26 are in the extended 4-year program. And joining the incoming JD students are 12 new second-year students who have transferred to the law school. Our campus is proud to stand at the frontier of a broad global community. This year, we welcome 17 new LLM students who come to us from 15 countries, including Jordan, Sri Lanka, the Dominican Republic, Egypt, Switzerland, and Mexico. All of them hold law degrees in their home countries and have come here to study alongside our JD students. We also welcome 6 exchange students who will join us this fall from France, the Netherlands, and China. In the first year JD class alone, your birthplaces span 5 continents, and 20 countries. 78 of you, 22% of the incoming class, are first-generation Americans. You speak 40 languages and dialects other than English, ranging from Farsi to Polish to Vietnamese. 64% of you, 18% of the incoming class, speak at least 3 languages. You hail from 30 US states and 7 foreign countries. 52 of you reside at the center of the universe, otherwise known as Brooklyn. Some more statistics. The class median age is 24. The youngest is 20, and the oldest is 42. For the student who is 20, remember that using a fake ID is a misdemeanor. And you will have to report it to the Character and Fitness Committee. No matter the age, we are always pleased to see students follow in the footsteps of family members who are graduates of Brooklyn Law School. Tonight, we welcome 28 such students. And with over 23,000 alumni, that really isn't surprising. All of you are here because we know you're prepared to excel academically, both in the classroom and in the field through clinics, externships, internships, and pro bono work. Collectively, you graduated from 179 colleges and universities, having pursued 62 different academic majors. 31 have earned postgraduate degrees, including MAs, MBAs, MFAs, and PhDs. Listen to some of the fascinating examples of work you have done. I'm not even sure I can say this word, but I'll try. Pronounce it. I don't think it's rude. An osteological dig of funerary graves in an ancient Roman port city, utilizing biochemistry and archaeological techniques to appropriately excavate remains and classify bones in a lab. Re-examination of a body surface area as a preoperative predictor of risk in prosthetic joint infection. Research for the Calgary Public Interest Law Clinic supporting environmental protection of a rare species of fish in Alberta. A presentation exploring the benefit of an interdisciplinary study approach to domestic violence in the legal system, emphasizing the importance of victims' advocates' presence in a courtroom. And an investigation of the role of transient receptor protein channels during the ingestion of bacteria by phagocytes and amoeboid protozoans. I did not just make that up. Many of you have come to Brooklyn already having achieved career success. You've held such impressive positions as Vice President of Business Strategy and Client Relations at a law firm, Behavioral Therapist for Children with Disabilities, Creative Manager for world-famous electronic music festivals and nightclubs, Global Financing Project Manager for IBM, Legal Coordinator for Michael Kors, Lead Fire Protection Engineer at a construction engineering company, and political reporter and analyst whose work has been published by The Wall Street Journal, New York Magazine, The New York Times, and The Guardian. You are not only intellectually and professionally impressive, you are accomplished artists and athletes. We call it Brooklyn's Got Talent. Among you today are several varsity athletes, a basketball coach for the Long Island Muslim Basketball Association, a competitive figure skater, a Broadway sound engineer, a ukulele player, an artist who has written, directed, and produced her own short film, a founder of an LGBT+ opera society, a competitive rifle shooter, a classically trained chef, an ocean rescue swimmer, a performer of Shang Sheng, a type of traditional Chinese comedy performance, and an award-winning creative writer. Public service and working for the greater good have been part of Brooklyn Law School's mission since our founding more than a century ago. Now you will carry on this tradition. Many of you have done truly inspiring volunteer work to give back to communities and the world, including fighting against human trafficking, helping asylum seekers and refugees, and traveling all over the globe to volunteer in orphanages, among many other examples. We look forward to seeing you apply this dedication and compassion as law students and in your future career as lawyers. Others have worked for the public interest and government organizations, including the founder of a nonprofit organization that benefits orphans who have been neglected due to some type of disability, a U.S. Navy nuclear senior supervisor on a guided missile submarine, an individual who worked within the Department of Education to counsel and assist victims of crises, a program officer at the Human Rights Foundation, and a field director for the advocacy nonprofit Maryellen Working Families. I've also noticed that many of you are former bartenders, brewers, and nightlife promoters. I've written down your names for the faculty in case one of us needs to hire a student worker. So many stories, experiences, and talents. All in all, we are astonished by this extraordinary group of students who have traveled many different paths to arrive at the singular point tonight. Can you guess who is who? Well, you will have the next 1 to 4 years to find out as you become classmates, lifelong friends, and members of our extraordinary Brooklyn Law School community. So, you guys, that's for you guys. Okay, and now is a part that I'm especially excited about. Of course, every great team needs a superlative head coach. And boy, do we have one. And I know this better than most, as she was assigned as one of my mentors when I started at Brooklyn. She offered to me just what she will offer to you, a clear vision of how to thrive here at Brooklyn Law School. I won't list all the books Dean Fullerton has written and articles she's published, but I will tell you, if you were to stack them all, they would reach the top of this podium. She is an expert in refugee and immigration law, and also in the law of civil procedure. Among many other achievements, she has been a Fulbright Scholar, a rapporteur for Human Rights Watch, and something I know she is rightly proud of, Professor of the Year at Brooklyn Law School. Please welcome Interim Dean Maryellen Fullerton.
Thank you very much, Stephen. So now it's my turn to welcome you to Brooklyn Law School. You've heard words of inspiration and challenge from Dean Caplow, from Dean Dean, and from Judge Katzman. Now I want to offer some, and I promise I'll be brief. First, as I look out at all of you sitting here in the ceremonial courtroom, I remember the excitement and the apprehension I felt on the evening before my first day of law school. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I'd like law school. I didn't even know if I'd like the other people who went to law school. But I ended up marrying a lawyer, and law school turned out to be the place where I bonded with lifelong friends, where I learned to look at the world in so many different dimensions, and where I began the intellectual journey of my life. I wish the same for all of you. Not necessarily the marriage to a lawyer part, though that didn't turn out so bad in my case. Turning from my first day in law school to yours, I want to tell you a little bit more about Brooklyn Law School, which has been educating law students for 117 years. I want to tell you this because I think its distinctive legacy makes it likely that you too will have a life-changing experience learning the law. For a few minutes, I'd like to mention the essential components of what makes us who we are. First, the history. Throughout the long years of Brooklyn Law School's mission, Brooklyn Law School has been the gateway to the legal profession for women, for immigrants, for people of color, for members of other underrepresented groups, many of whom were not allowed in law schools until the later part of the 20th century. Don't take my word for it. Look at the photographs in the halls of Brooklyn Law School, or stop by my office to see some of the early classes. There was a woman in the first class in 1901. The first African-American student that we can document was in the class of 1909. In 1916, there were 44 women. The next year, there were 53. 1918, there were 70. By contrast, Harvard Law School didn't accept women students until the 1950s. So Brooklyn Law School has a long tradition of welcoming people to the law and welcoming people to help others have more access to the law, as Judge Katzman just referred. Looking at the same vintage photographs I just mentioned, you'll see that all the male students sitting in the class were wearing coats and ties. You can't see their names, but if you could, they would resound with immigrant stories, stories of people who came to the United States for a better life. They and their classmates thrived at Brooklyn Law School and in turn became trailblazers in all fields of the law. Turning now to the faculty. Today, most of you won't wear coats and ties to class, and most of the faculty won't wear coats and ties to class. But you will have the chance to study with a group of impressive scholars, many of whom are here tonight, sitting behind me and sitting over in the jury box to my right. You will have an opportunity to learn about their scholarly work and its impact on law and policy. You will have a chance to see that they are unparalleled as teachers, and they are mentors who will be your biggest champions. They will challenge you, they will infuriate you, they will enlighten you, and they'll do whatever they can to help you succeed in law school and in your careers. Turning to the alums. As Brooklyn Law School students, as you just heard, you will benefit from an alumni network of 23,000 graduates around the world. Our alums are deeply engaged with our students and give generously of their time as mentors and advisors. They'll be important to you while you're law students, but they may be even more important to you as a strong network in your post-law school life. And then I want to mention the staff. Get to know our superb staff. They're dedicated to supporting you so that you can devote your time and your energies to your studies. Whether it's helping you in the library, whether it's helping you with course registration, whether it's something else, you can count on them. They want to solve problems and they want to help students. That's why they're working at Brooklyn Law School. And speaking of students, you just heard from our Vice Dean that your fellow students are amazing individuals. I can assure you that you will learn more from them than you ever imagined. Enough said. All these people, all these parts of the institution make Brooklyn Law School a special place, a student-centered community that's committed to your success. This is my commitment to you as well. Indeed, I will see some of you in the classroom this week as I join with other faculty members to teach a section of Introduction to the Study of Law. By the way, if you haven't read and analyzed the assigned materials yet, go home and do it. A word of warning, I call on students, especially those in the back row. Think about that when you get to the classroom. In addition to teaching, I've scheduled Dean's office hours. Every week on Monday afternoons, I've set aside 2 hours for students to drop in my office in the 9th floor Dean's office. You can also make an appointment, but you can just drop in. And the point is, I want to hear from students. I want to hear what your questions are. I want to hear what your suggestions are. Or I want to hear what you're doing, what you're thinking, how you're feeling about law school. My door is open, not only during office hours, but my office hours are a way to make the barriers a little lower to talking to the dean about law studies at Brooklyn Law School. I'm also launching a monthly Dean's Law and Policy series called Bringing the World into the Law School. These programs will be on the first floor student lounge, where they'll showcase the work our faculty is doing on the most important issues of the day. The very first session will be on Wednesday, September 5th, 2 days after Labor Day. One of our many superstars, Professor Sabeel Rahman, will discuss structural inequality and social movements. This will be an interactive session open to all students and, in fact, all members of the Brooklyn Law School community, and will examine the intersection of multiple hot-button topics: economic inequality, movement activism, upcoming midterm elections, and more. He'll brainstorm with you about the insights, tools, and opportunities that are available today in Brooklyn to lawyers and law students. You don't want to miss this or the other monthly series or the many other symposia and events planned at Brooklyn Law School. This means you need to hone your time management skills. It's important to prepare for your classes, but it's a big mistake not to take advantage of other Brooklyn Law School programs and events. And also, make sure you take advantage of attending law school in the greatest city in the world, and the best borough in the greatest city in the world. We're nothing if not Brooklyn boosters at Brooklyn Law School. Get outside the law school when you can. Go to Brooklyn Bridge Park, clear your brain, go for a walk, take a run, see a play, volunteer. Become a part of this vibrant community. It'll only get better if you participate, both the community and your life. As I close, I'd like to leave you with a personal story. Back to my law school days. As a law student, I was particularly interested in federal courts. I took courses about Article III of the U.S. Constitution. I interned for as many federal judges as I could. I followed the gossip about the Supreme Court. But one semester, I took a 2-credit elective course in immigration law. In this moment, I don't remember why. Maybe, and this is something law professors, including me, hate to hear, maybe because it was just convenient to my schedule. But I enjoyed it. But it didn't change my career interests. It didn't change my direction. I went on to clerk for 2 federal judges, to teach federal courts, to write about federal procedure. Years later, however, that 2-credit elective course changed my life. By serendipity, I had the opportunity to develop and teach a new course, and I ended up with immigration and refugee law. Some years after that, there was a Fulbright competition focused on comparative legal issues in Europe. By serendipity, it coincided with my sabbatical leave. So I applied to study refugee processing in both Belgium and Germany. Our first child was born in Belgium, as I did field research on asylum procedures there. Many years later, many years later, I continued to research and write about refugee law, particularly comparative refugee law. And I never saw it coming in law school. So my message to you, be open. Take chances on topics that interest you. Life is full of serendipitous moments. We're here to help you discover and seize those moments. Today, this evening, it's the beginning of your law school journey. I look forward to the personal discoveries and to your contributions to the century-old Brooklyn Law School legacy. Good luck, good night, and join us afterwards for a celebration and a reception outside in the atrium. Thanks so much, and we'll see you bright and early tomorrow.